It's like the floppy penis in Roma.
It's like the floppy penis in Roma.
I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong.
You're
so
not,
out of context,
you're not wrong, Walter. You're just an asshole.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
Hello.
And I can't believe that he's even here right now. From Music Video Sense, Barrett Share.
Yay!
There was a thought there that we wouldn't be able to either have a podcast or Jeremy and I would be doing one that wouldn't be the bracket, and we would just shoot the shit or something. I don't know. But we are glad that you are here.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm here.
You went through
too.
some shit.
Yeah,
It wasn't the shit, but it was some shit.
Yeah. I had an illness. It wasn't the illness, but it was a rough one, and still recovering. Still not all the way there, but all the way there enough to talk movies with you guys because I love you and I've missed you.
It was chlamydia.
Yep. Hey, I was going to keep that under wraps, but now that you say it, yeah, there's no way of cutting
has
that out.
never manifest itself this way ever. I should be in the medical books.
Yeah, exactly. No kidding. We're going to go back to our best of the decade, the 2010s bracket. We are at the Sweet 16 now.
Make it hurt.
Yeah, it's going to hurt. It always does. But I'm going to go in the same order that we've been going. We're going to start in the North region. We're going to have the number 1 seed, Mad Max Fury Road, versus the 4 seed, The Nice Guys.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I saw The Nice Guys again last week.
Yeah, I saw it last night.
Yeah.
I had to give it another go. It's going up against Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, seriously.
But I was trying to think if there were 4 or 5 moments that even though I knew they were coming or I'd heard them before, that made me laugh out loud in this movie. Russell Crowe, when they're at the steps and there's all those people who are pretending to be dead, and he's like, and there's the people with the gas masks, and he's like, so the gas masks for some of you, I guess it didn't help. It didn't help. And just listening to just the casual conversations that, like the dude on the bike, he's like, I tried to get in that guy's film. I tried to show him my dick because I got a big dick.
Hey, you want to see my dick?
Yeah. But
nobody wants to see your dick, dude.
And then later on, they're driving. He's like, oh my god, that kid asked if he wanted to see his dick, and it's like him and the Chets of the world. That's what my daughter's gonna have to deal with. He's like, it's over. The one part that I thought that I had forgotten about in this was the part where he's sort of like, he's saying he wants to celebrate and not help out the Margaret Qualley character, really. He's like, hey, let's celebrate. And his daughter is all like, are you serious? Like, you got to be the worst detective in the world and everything. But he's sitting there, he's basically playing possum on this. And he's like, the note on there, it's pointing to these apartments. It's these apartments next to the airport. You can't, the reason why is that the number, they think it's a flight that is on the note. And it's like, no, there's no red eyes at this time and everything. And so he really impresses them with this knowledge. And then they go and they find out that those apartments aren't even there, and that there are red eyes, and that there is a 10-6 and all this. And then he shows again, like, hey, it's still not a flight. He goes from dumb to smart again.
Yeah.
And I love that change of his character all the way throughout. He says something to Crow earlier where he's like, you have to be able to translate nitwit or dumbass or something like that. like people are telling you things and you have to translate it. That's one thing that I love about his character in this, is that he's able to take something like somebody like the kid with the big dick, quote unquote, tells him that it's like Hat Rack is the name. And then they go down the road and he's like, hey, it's Hat Rack. And it's a totally different name, but it's obviously the name that kid was trying to say.
Yeah.
And I love that type of shit.
I like two of my favorite moments come in the scene where they go to the hotel. They decide to go into this, I think it's the Beverly Western Hotel or something. And they go up to the bartender, and this is like the last maybe quarter of the movie. And the bartender doesn't want to give him any information. And Ryan Gosling, this shows how well they've become teammates over 3 days. Because Gosling just goes, if you tell me something, then he'll stop doing it. And the guy goes, doing what? And Russell Crowe just grabs him by the tie and slams his fucking face on the bar. And then they get in the elevator and they go up and there's no dialogue, but the doors open and they hear this. They both peek their heads out and look, and there's a guy with a fucking knife coming out of his neck, and he's bleeding out. And then they hear another noise, and they turn to the right, and there's a guy who stumbles back and gets shot like 6 times, and they both just shrink right back into the elevator, and the door is closed. And then a fucking guy goes flying out the window as they're going down the. This movie is so funny.
Yeah, it really is. I like the mystery involved in it too. It's like complex, but not too complex. Like it's a complex thing with a simple answer, basically.
Yeah. Does it come out on either way? No, it's been a minute since I've seen this all the way through. Does it come out either way on whether Ryan Gosling's character is either or is he just that combination? Like there are times where he's dumb, and there are times where he's smart about some things.
I think that's it. I think he's both.
Yeah, he's for sure both. He's definitely not like Bill Pullman in Zero Effect or something like that, right, where it's he's just kind of he does know enough to I guess get through a case most of the time, but there's probably other times that he's completely lost and
it does even show he's smart enough to be a little bit evil, because like one of the early scenes is him interviewing this old lady client. Yeah, she's like, I haven't seen Frank, and it's been a while, and he looks up and there's an ash, like an urn on the mantle that says Frank, and he goes, well, when was the last time you saw him? And she said, oh, the funeral. Yeah. So he's taking her money to look for a husband he knows is dead, but that requires a little bit of smarts, I think.
Well, and he goes to that party, and he's trying to impress that girl dressed up as Pocahontas, and he does this little dance or something, and he throws himself off that balcony and rolls all the way down a hill, where it just so happens that porn producer is like murdered down at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, exactly.
And Russell Crowe was like, how did you see that all the way up? Did you fall? He figures it out. He figures out that the guy fell, because there's no way he knew.
Because he's toe up at that point, right? That's after he gets all
super toe up. Yeah.
And then they take the body and they throw it over a fence.
Yeah.
For this party that's going on,
like a quinceanera or something.
They're like, oh shit. Oh man, it's truly underwatched, I think. Maybe our fans have watched it, but I hope it continues to get more and more of a following. It's almost perfect combination of action and comedy.
Yeah, and I've seen a few people comment about it, saying that they had not seen it before this podcast, and so I'm glad to see that people have started watching it.
Well, like I said, I've only seen it once all the way through, but I've caught it many times. I've just never been able to go to completion.
Mm-hmm, right.
Have you seen Mad Max or this movie more times?
I've seen curious. Nice Guys more, probably.
Nice Guys.
I actually may have seen them about the same amount of times, because this viewing of Nice Guys was the first one I had seen in like maybe a couple years, somewhere in there.
It's weird because you expect a one seed like Fury Road, which is at the top of virtually every list, to just run through this whole thing. But I voted against it last time with Blind Spotting, and this is a toss up to me. I recognize the beauty and the awesomeness that is Mad Max, But The Nice Guys is just so enjoyable. Even if I've only caught, a few scenes here and there over the years, I love it. I love it so much.
There are two things I think at play here. One is that at least over the last 3 years, Nice Guys has been on one of the movie channels consistently. So if I'm flipping channels, it's on regularly, whereas Mad Max Fury Road isn't. So that's why I think I've seen Nice Guys more. But also, if I want to watch Mad Max Fury Road, I am buckling the fuck in, man, for like a 2-hour tense thrill ride. Whereas I could come in and out of the Nice Guys and just do a little work or go out of the room. Whereas Mad Max is something I feel like I have to prepare for, and I want to. I've seen it probably 5 or 6 times, just not as much.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say about Mad Max. We have thoroughly discussed that movie. I saw this one recently, probably about a month ago, in that black and chrome edition or whatever. And it's still super intense, and very, very good. What are we going to do with the voting?
I'm voting Mad Max. It's such a fucking achievement that movie was made, and there's so much about it that works. It's operatic, it's visually stunning, it's thrilling, intense, it's emotional at times. There's a reason I think it's on the top of a lot of people's list of best of the decade.
Yeah.
Because I think it is.
Yeah,
that moment with Furiosa with her scream, because she's been stoic the entire time, right? She's been either kicking ass or just looking straight ahead and figuring out what to do, and then she has that let it out moment. And you're right. I have to go with Mad Max if you don't mind me taking the decision.
Perfectly fine. Chris. It's perfectly fine. I actually may have been going Nice Guys here.
Wow.
I was sitting there watching Nice Guys last night, just thinking how enjoyable this is. Now, in my mind, and I won't tell you which movie I was thinking of, but in my mind, this was going up against something else. And I was having a really hard time figuring out if I was going to pick that or The Nice Guys. And I think I ended up on the other movie in that matchup in my head. But between these two, I have The Nice Guys. But Mad Max is going to move on this one, and I am totally fine with that.
It's a good movie.
It's so good, and it's one of the best experiences that I've had. So it moves on to the Elite Eight. It will go up against the winner of La La Land versus Hell or High Water, which, if you think back, this has already been a matchup essentially.
Man.
It
went one way.
Yeah, when we did the 2016 best of 2016, a lot of these movies were being brought up. I think we ended up as a room picking La La Land in that one. I don't know how we got to La La Land, whether it was the first choice or what. I know that I picked Hell or High Water.
I think Dicer and I both picked La La Land, and Dubro over here picked something off kilter.
That's probably right.
Dude, bro.
That's you. I was pointing at you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe it was Moonlight.
Well, as I remember, I either hadn't seen Hell or High Water at that point, or I hadn't seen it more than once.
Right.
Because I definitely remember saying, even on Twitter, 8 months later, if I had it to do all over again, I would pick Hell or High Water over La La Land.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that's changed.
I don't know.
We'll find out.
It'll be interesting to see. I watched La La Land again for the first time in a long time the other day, because it had just been forever. I didn't remember many of the songs. I didn't remember some of the little things that happened in it. But man, Damien Chazelle's so good. He's so good. How is somebody that talented, that young? I mean, it's another prodigy, basically. The colors in this movie, I love that opening sequence is something that you never see in a modern musical, really. Like something that's got that kind of. Just the idea that they decided to do a musical number out in LA traffic, is just really fun.
That I think that's the big thing this has on me is that it's a musical set in a reality in which you can envision, right? Like typically musicals are all fantastical, like, oh, everybody's even talking in the same way, that kind of thing. But, right after that delightful musical number, which is fantastical. It's got the band playing in the truck and stuff like that. It goes back to normal traffic where like you get honking and Emma Stone flipping off Ryan Gosling like a normal person would. And then it sets its course interspersed with all these wonderful musical acts, like the one where they go to the party and they're wearing the dresses. And then it goes back to her going to that party where he's playing in the cover band, which is also very realistic, where she's, basically fucking with him. Then it goes to that wonderful, what is it, City of Stars? No, it's not City of Stars. A Waste of a Lovely Night, where they start dancing together in a very classic Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire type of thing. And so it's that juxtaposition, which I don't know how often I've seen it, if I've ever seen it, that really, really appeals to me.
Do you think that movie had any impact on or increase to visitors to the observation center, whatever that's called,
Griffith,
up there on the Hollywood Mountain? Yeah, the Griffith Observatory.
I mean, it as they show in La La Land, it's been featured in a million movies since what was that Giant that they saw, or was it Rebel Without a Cause? It was Rebel Without a Cause.
Because he brings up the line and she doesn't know it. It's like it's funny too that he knows that and she doesn't, and she's obviously a big, huge movie buff because she knows,
and he's the jazz man.
But
I know that we've been there.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say was that we went there after. I mean, Jeremy and I had been there in another LA trip before this. But then La La Land happened, and then we sort of like, we got to go and see it again or something like that. So
it is a really nice set piece. It's weird because, she does an interview. She must do her audition somewhere near that because that's where they end up doing their post-mortem thing after she gets the part to go over to France and all that. And that's just such a nice backdrop, especially after all the stuff they've been through, starting with how in love they were at the first time that they were up there, and then how they've kind of resolved themselves. Even though they are still in love, they've resolved themselves to a different status at this point in the same location. Another probably just genius directing trick.
Also, though, if your dream is to own a tiny little jazz club, I hope you don't expect to make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Drives you fucking crazy, dude. That jazz club.
Do you think that they did? Have we discussed this before? Do you think that they picked Tom Everett Scott to be Emma Stone's husband because he was the jazz guy in That Thing You Do?
I'm sure it didn't hurt.
Like you think that maybe he thought of him being like while he was like Ryan Gosling is so much like Tom Everett Scott in That Thing You Do. That he wanted to cast him, and of course he's the guy who goes in and into Seb's at the end, and is like, "This place is kind of cool" or whatever.
Yeah.
And
well, both movies are basically saying you should follow your dreams, especially if they're going to make you poor. You shouldn't want to be a wealthy, famous musician. Both movies, like, because at the end of That Thing You Do, Tom Everett Scott goes off and teaches music. He becomes a teacher. You know how much teachers make? Not a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was bringing in scratch and pussy when he was touring with John Legend. And he's not doing either at Seb's.
No.
You just jumped movies on me too. That was shocking.
Yeah, I had forgotten too that he had become successful in this movie. I had forgotten about that aspect.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really quite believe it. Like that type of music was just took off. became huge. There's a video. I'm sure you guys send this in the video. There's a video in the movie that's like an interview. It's an interview at a fucking radio station, and it's got 800,000 views on it.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can find whoever the most popular person is right now and put them on a radio station interview, and it'll have like 50,000 views.
Yeah.
But like, I had no idea that I had forgotten that they had gotten so big, because there's a point, like the way it's cut, where when he's first trying out with that band, he's trying to play his traditional jazz piano in that. And then it cuts straight to John Legend saying, man, you're never, you're talking about Thelonious Monk and all these people, those people were revolutionaries. You're never gonna like be better if you don't have progression to all this. So like, nobody's coming out to watch Thelonious Monk type stuff anymore. It's this new jazz fusion, whatever it's called, thing.
But even in that scene, by the way, when they're at rehearsal, all he does is hit like an 808, and it's just like all of a sudden, like it's a beat in the background, and he looks like he's been shot.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's not cool. Now the track they do later on, where he's doing the crazy like electronic keys, like Revenge of the Nerds finale type of thing, like that's weird, but like that's markedly different. But like that part seemed. He just hit it.
Yeah, but I do like I liked how too that argument starts. He thinks that the only reason why I feel like he even goes with this band, because he obviously doesn't like this kind of music at all. He's just doing it because he finally found a girl that's in love with him, and he thinks that if he sticks with this job, that he can keep the girl, and that she wants this and everything. But then she says something like, well, I didn't know this was something that you wanted to do. I thought this was just something on the way to something else. And then he gets upset that because he thought that she liked what he was doing. And he's like, well, I do, but I didn't think it was something that you wanted and everything. And it's from that little part right there, it just ignites into this huge thing. And I really think it was an honest sort of way of an argument starting. It's not some just one bullshit thing that happens and they argue about that one bullshit thing. It's about a whole bunch of other things, and I love that.
How does that play out? Does that play out, do you remember, without score? I think that's the only place in the movie where there's no score, especially towards the end of that argument.
I think you're right. I think there's no score there.
It puts on a record, and the record runs out. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I like that too. I mean, it does spiral out. The only real contrived moment in this movie to me, there's a lot that's technically contrived, but the story contrived is the whole he misses her only one-act play or her only one-man play by doing a photo shoot. Like, he has to do that. He can't tell John Legend, dude, my wife is having, or my girlfriend is having one performance that she's dedicated like the last 6 months to. But no, you got to do
like
that.
This band couldn't survive without photos of the keyboard player or some shit.
Yeah, the keyboard player biting his lip and putting his sunglasses
I think
down.
he realizes that.
It's a funny
I think
scene.
he realizes that during the photo shoot too. Like, there's no need for that. There's no need for me to be here. But it's too late at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the end of it, right? That's what breaks them.
It breaks them up because she's done. She doesn't want to act anymore. She goes home, home. He's like just lying around in bed, and a phone call from an agency comes in and says, I saw the play and I want to cast her in this movie. So he goes. Now, this is another good thing that this movie does with this relationship. It's a very mature decision. I don't know if we see that very often with relationships like this, but he goes and he tracks her down because, she said that she used to live near this library and whatever. And that was a big thing in the movie where he remembered that. And she goes on this audition. She doesn't know if it went well or not, but he's like, this is going to happen. You're going to go to Paris and you're going to have to dedicate your whole life. This is like a Damien Chazelle staple, right? Can't have the relationship if you're going to be off doing something to your fullest.
Yeah, so
that goes all the way through First Man too.
Yeah, exactly.
So he tells her you're gonna go out there and you're gonna be great, and this is you're gonna have to dedicate your full force to it, and I'm not gonna be the one that sits there and brings you down for it. And so they break up amicably. She even says, I'm always going to love you, and everything, which is a great scene.
And then Whitney Houston comes on,
and then Kevin Costner comes in holding Whitney Houston's body. That's so crazy.
her body.
No. No.
Oh.
What says this? Is Barrett? No.
I feel icky.
You'll never see the cover of The Bodyguard the same way ever again.
No, you will not.
All right, so it goes up against Hell or High Water, which we've talked about a bunch. I'm not sure if there's much more that I can extract from this movie either. This is a very tough matchup, even though in the past we have gone various ways with this thing. I'm going to go ahead and say Hell or High Water on this, pulling off the Band-Aid. I'm just going to go ahead and say it.
Wow.
I think La La Land maybe as far as like creative points and technical points might be better, but I enjoy Hell or High Water more.
It's such a good movie. I've got to go La La Land. I have to represent.
Oh man, you got to represent who?
La La Land.
all those millionaire actresses out there and jazz club owners. No, I was thinking about Hell or High Water, and I was thinking about how one brother is a criminal, is just getting out of prison, and one brother has never been a criminal and has been the stay-at-home, help take care of mom brother. And somehow, by choosing crime, by choosing to rob these banks, both brothers are making a more moral choice than their previous lives. If you think about it, right? Like the super criminal brother is now doing crime for a really good reason. And the non-criminal brother can't do anything else except turn to this specific life of crime to save his family's land. And I think it kind of unites them from two ends of the spectrum until the other brother goes off and does some crazy shit. But in that last heist, they're both making the best choice for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Was Ben Foster just criming like randomly before he got shit canned? Before he got,
I think he was doing like Grand Theft Auto and shit like that.
But not for the land or anything like that, just for criming.
Yeah, no, he's just a bad seed.
Didn't he just get out of jail for the killing their dad? Like he hasn't been doing anything. He's just gotten back out, and like even before then, I'm not even sure if he was like criming. Maybe Grand Theft Auto, like you're talking about. But I don't know if he was. I don't know if he was like. If he'd even killed people before, although he does it pretty easily in this movie.
He sure does. Mm-hmm. There's a line where Jeff Bridges says something like, that's the brother that would lead to bank robbery, not this other one, Chris Pine. So, yeah, I think he's been a criminal more than once, but hasn't quite gotten to killing status. But, yeah, like you said, the switch flips pretty easily for him.
Yeah. So what are you going to pick?
Oh, I forgot. It's Hell or High Water. I love La La Land, but Hell or High Water connected with me on a spiritual level. Those people feel. I've said this before. Every person in that movie feels like a real person, and almost nobody in La La Land does. It's a silly thing to choose on, but that's how I choose.
I dig. I would watch either of these movies right this second.
Goodbye to Ryan Gosling on 2 right off the bat, and and
Son of
two
a-
LA as fuck movies too. They're gone. We go on to the East region, where we have the number 1 seed Inception going against the 5 seed Spotlight. Yeah, this is a rough one here. I promised that I would watch Inception again before after we voted the last time. I have done that. Got the nice little 4K version of this one.
Oh yeah,
popped it in. Gave it a fresh viewing for probably the first time in some time. I've seen parts of Inception many times. Like, it's usually always sort of in the middle of the movie or towards the end when I end up seeing it. And watching this beginning part, I was like, God, it must have been forever. It must have been since we seen this movie since I've seen the beginning, because I couldn't remember any of that part. And as I started bringing up a lot of questions with myself on this movie too, like how certain things. I mean, this has been sort of the thing that everybody has to deal with Inception, right? What they're trying to figure out how all of this is working, and how does that make sense? And there are certain things in this that I'm not sure do make sense a lot of times. Like, for instance, and maybe I'm being dense here, but you know, in the beginning, they're trying to get into Ken Watanabe's head, basically, and they are doing something. They are doing extraction. They're not doing Inception, and that it's really easy to think that the whole movie's about that, but really the technology is about extraction, getting ideas out of people's heads, and so they are at the beginning. They're in this big mansion, like on the beach, and they're at a party. And there's a point where Ken Watanabe figures everything out, and he's like, because he tells Leonardo DiCaprio, we're in your dream right now. He goes, actually, we're in Arthur's dream. And so, like, Arthur gets shot and he gets knocked out of the dream, and then he goes up to the next level or whatever, and he's out. And then I'm like, well, if it's Arthur's dream, how is DiCaprio still down in there? And how is Ken Watanabe still down in there if it was Arthur's the whole time? You know, like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Does somebody take responsibility for having, I guess now, yeah. Because even though they're collectively hooked up to these things and they build a maze, how do you determine whose ownership? Like, is the architect, like the Ellen Page eventual character, is that her dream if they were doing extraction?
No, it's an actual developed like a video game level thing. Like, so this is where the movie starts getting really confusing, because you have to think about it in these terms. Someone constructed this level. Someone's dream is in control of all of this, and all of them are inside that person's dream. So, like,
all of it, all levels.
Like, yeah, so like at the end of Inception, when they're in that ice level, basically, they're in Tom Hardy's head. But the level was constructed by Ellen Page. And Ellen Page, I think, may have helped him with it, because she says something like he put in an exit of some sort so that you could get out of it easier or something. I don't know. And at times I'm sitting there going, well, wait a minute. Are they saying that Eames is his name? Are they saying that he constructed that level, or are they saying that he needed to know that level because it was going to be his dream? So a lot of times in this movie, I was sitting there, I was like, oh my God, that this movie really was made for you not to think at all. Like it was made for you.
Yeah, either think too much.
It was made for you to accept what they were saying and move on. That's what I'm saying. You can think about it all you want to, but there's always like the way this movie is written, like every single thing that you can come up with is like, well, we have an answer for that. And you know, like well, we're going to get this super terrible sedative that's going to knock us out for hours and hours and hours. But we still need a way to make the kick work. So, like, I've done something where the sedative is strong, but your inner ear still detects falling. So you will get knocked out of the dream and everything. And so it's like, God, you guys, like, Jesus Christ.
Plus, nobody ever really accounts. I know they're using the drug as they go on, but before they meet that guy who's got the fancy drug, does anybody ever account for, like, possible loud noises right outside the building they're sleeping in?
Yeah, because these are populous places that they're
right,
in, right?
Like a bit. Like, remember when that lightning struck right outside your studio and all three of us shit our pants because it was so goddamn loud? What if that happens while they're in a dream and everybody gets kicked on accident? It is very much like you said, a movie that doesn't want you to think too much about being what you're told, but it does want you to think. Not about the details of what you're being told, but about the bigger picture. Whereas that defense, I often hear a lot about Fast and Furious movies. It's like, well, that movie doesn't want you to think. And but it's not actually saying anything either. Whereas Inception is.
I keep going back and forth as to whether he's in a dream at the end. I always end up on the idea that guy is in a dream at the end of the movie. The top he spins. Now, I don't know if this is the movie, the script legend. I guess the script's legend basically says that the script says the top falls over, but they decided not to show that at the end. They just show the top spinning at the very end of the movie, and it keeps spinning, and it cuts off just as you see it maybe wobble a little bit. And the issue I have is, and I don't know if the movie means it this way, is he spins that thing and it's already like halfway ready to fall down when he puts it up. But when he goes and talks to his kids and everything, it's upright. It's completely upright, and it's going for a real. It's like it's moving too. Like it's like, all right, I'm staying up. I'm staying up. I'm staying up, and then it wobbles like the slightest bit, and they cut it off, and of course you get the chills, and you see Christopher Nolan's name,
and it's so imperceptible that it wobbles. It's just the time. You know that in editing they were just like, okay, frame by frame. Once it tilts one little bit for 2 frames.
Well, and we don't know how many years. We don't know how many years have passed since he has been accused of killing his wife, and now, like, how long has it been since that happened? But his kids look the exact same. They're the same age, it looks like. The discussion about how she throws herself out of a window is completely dreamlike. Like she's in another building when he goes out to that window. It doesn't make sense, much like a dream. And the thought of the reason why he knows that this Inception works is because he gave it to his wife. It could very well represent him too. He could have gotten the idea that the world he wasn't in was real, and he's been trying to get out of it ever since.
Regardless, she's kind of an asshole, though, right? Because she's set up a reality to where, because it's all about her. Like, she sets this up to make it look like he killed her if he doesn't go with her, right? That's a bit of an asshole thing to do.
It's a dream
thing. But if she's, we also don't know how much mental illness is going on in that particular situation.
Exactly.
Mental stress and definitely.
So like at the end when he's in limbo and they're like, Ellen Page was like, just come back when you can, basically, which is another thing that sort of steps on a lot of the things that are in this movie. When Joseph Gordon-Levitt goes through that whole thing with the, when they're in the apartment or the hotel, and he's like, I'm going to have to make sure this kick is timed just perfectly, because if I do it too early, we won't go back. And if I do it too late, the van will be in free fall and there will be no gravity. But apparently none of that matters. Like, by the end of it, none of that matters because DiCaprio can be in limbo and somehow kick himself all the way back through all these levels without any problem whatsoever. And so, like, I was sitting there going, you went through that explanation about why you needed to have this simultaneous kick, this perfect kick, and you see him, like, tying the people together and putting them in the elevator shaft and all that. And I'm like, did you really need to do that? Now that I think about it, maybe you didn't. Maybe you didn't have to do that. I'm sure that there are other explanations out there, and there are people who are like, no, he needed to do that because blah, 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 blah. I was like, I don't know. I just watched this movie last couple of nights ago, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if he does. DiCaprio seems to get back fine, even after all the kicks are done. So I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in there that if he's in limbo, they could easily hook him up to some other thing that when he wakes up, it makes it look like he's on an airplane with everybody else, and he lands, he goes through customs, he does all of that. They have that all set up, ready to go. And then, hey, you can take you to your kids. Ken Watanabe just says, all I have to do is make a phone call. He doesn't explain what his phone call is going to say. Like, how does he have the pull to get him where he, has no extradition to the United States? I know we're getting way into the weeds on Inception. We could talk about Inception a bunch, but it goes up against Spotlight, and Spotlight is, like I talked about last time, watching this recently, it's just a way more special movie than I thought it was when I first watched it. So, I don't know where I want to go with this matchup at all. I know that Spotlight is the more important movie. Inception is the more technically brilliant and creative movie.
That is a fair assessment. When you pitch a movie that's a newspaper investigates this real life scandal, you either think of, other than the one with the guys, the men and the deep throat,
all the president's men,
the men and the deep
all the president's men. Other than that, you throw that out. Most of those newspaper investigates a real life scandal movies, like The Post or The Report, are good, but they're not like memorable, and they don't like weasel into your soul and your heart and like stay with you the way that Spotlight does. And the reason I didn't watch Spotlight for the longest time was I thought it was, hey, a newspaper investigates a real life scandal. I didn't think it was going to be something that I would go back to and continue to get invested in every time. I've seen it maybe 5, 6, 7 times now, and every time it's just as compelling. And that's not like The Post. I watched The Post once, and I'll never watch that fucking movie again.
Yeah, The Post is a movie that probably shouldn't have been made by Spielberg.
Yes,
it probably should have been done by somebody who really got interested in the minutia of that whole investigation. And this one is more about that one's more about something else. I don't know. It's not really the Pentagon Papers or whatever. It's
right.
I mean, it is, but not really. It's just kind of, it's more about the paper than it is than the story.
It really is. It's more about his relationship with her, and then the sort of the bond they have, and her being a woman owner and having to like get respect. It's really more about that, or at least as much about that as it is the stuff they're researching.
Yeah.
I like that there's no outside romance really to speak of in Spotlight, right? Of either between or outside of the team, because they're all attractive, obviously. But there's no, because you want it to keep any reference to sex as, the perverse stuff that happened within the story. You don't, I think it's a really smart idea to not even mention it, right? To not even confuse the brain by saying like, oh yeah, sex between regular people is really fun. That's how I celebrate.
Yeah, that's how you do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it would be disrespectful to the story you're trying to tell if you like showed Rachel McAdams going home and boning her husband after a hard night's work.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. Like something, this is apples and oranges, but like the Ted Bundy movie with Zac Efron,
yes.
like showed the salacious bits of Ted Bundy and his actual nice relationship with his wife for a while, and then quick blip to all his murders at the very end, and then we're off for the credits. You know what I mean? So it's the polar opposite of something like that.
This is a matchup I don't want to have at all. I don't know what to do here. Somebody go first.
I'll start. I'm going with Inception because Spotlight, you're right, is more important, but I don't know if we've still, besides maybe Doctor Strange, we haven't seen anything kind of technically, spectacly impress us like this. In the way that, yes, in the way that it does it. And it also combines that with a thought-provoking story, even though some of it you gotta just kind of go with also really good performances. Leo is fantastic in this movie. Can be very emotional indeed. Very emotional indeed. Michael Caine's in there. Yeah. No, there's some very emotional beats in that. And I love the story. I love the spectacle. Love Spotlight, but I'll go with Inception.
All right.
Spotlight. Because Barrett is wrong. And I love Inception. Not because Barrett is wrong. I love Inception. I just, the stuff you were saying, if you think too much about it, it stops working as well. But he is agonizing over there. Look at him. Poor guy. Whereas there's nothing in Spotlight that pulls me out of it, or if I think too hard about it, it makes the whole story fall apart. And I think in 50 years or so, it'll be much more talked about than Inception. I can't believe I just said that.
Wow. I'm very curious to see if you're right. I'm curious to live for another 50 years, but and I hope you are right. Just for the current decade, this is 10 years later. We're still talking about this as being a technical marvel, which is kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
I'll even go so far as to say Inception is probably a more influential movie in terms of the visual ingenuity that will inspire Doctor Strange and other movies like that to come. But Spotlight is just, it means more. It has more to say. Sorry.
It does, but we've never made that the end all reason for our picks. Even though if you have movies that are completely even, you're obviously going to come for some any advantage that you can find to make that decision. I in the end, I'm going to go Inception here. Oh. I love Spotlight. I think that movie is as perfect as it's going to get, but Inception is going to win for me based on its ingenuity above all. And we can deconstruct that ingenuity, and whether or not it is Jeremy has a sad face written on a napkin. I agree. I don't want to see Spotlight go. And there's movies, like I said, there's movies on here that I didn't like seeing go that I think are probably better than the ones that moved on, but it's the way the matchups go, right? Every time the NCAA basketball tournament plays, there's a bunch of teams that probably should have gone farther that didn't. And that's the way this sort of works.
That's just the way it is, baby.
What were you going to say, Jeremy?
What I was going to say was this. my sad face on the screen.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, I'm making peace with that. My heart's been broken enough times in this bracket. At this point, it's just a lump of coal anyway, and it can't be broken anymore. So I'll take it in stride, and somewhere in an alternate universe, we chose Spotlight, and that bracket is better. I mean, different.
Inception will move on to face the winner of perhaps the hardest matchup of the day. It's the Raid 2 versus the Martian. These are both movies that Jeremy has espoused many times.
I can jerk off to each of them.
Yeah, right?
There's a very short list of movies that I can jerk off to.
Mm-hmm.
And these are both on it.
Yeah.
And I
got two screens.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought of about 6 different jokes I can't make on this podcast. Oh, God. The Raid 2 versus the Martian. I feel like when Barrett set up the bracket, he was intentionally trying to fuck me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he has now succeeded.
I've been wanting to fuck you for years, Jeremy.
Well, that's what they all say. Oh, God. What do we do? Okay, which one have you guys seen more recently between
I saw
two?
The Martian this morning. I saw
Nice.
I saw it in its brilliant 4K version.
Oh.
It's like fucking candy, man.
Oh God!
I covet your TV so much.
Talk about jerking off, man.
Yeah, and I saw.
We'd all three. If we walked in, we'd all three just.
I know.
Reflexively.
Yeah, who's going to be bringing the bread?
Oh God! This podcast is gross.
Oh, and I didn't even say any of my movies that were wrong that I jerked off.
Oh God. I saw the extended version of this movie as well. I had not seen that before.
What did you think of that?
I really liked it. It's interesting. It's interesting. The Ridley Scott has sort of been considered this master of the director's cut. Although they don't call this a director's cut, they just call it an extended edition. Which I'm wondering if there is a sort of business or union or some sort of reason why they don't call this director's cut. And something like Kingdom of Heaven is director's cut, and this movie is extended edition. But yeah, there were a couple of scenes that they threw in there. I thought it was interesting that they had Kristen Wiig talk to Chiwetel Ejiofor and tell him the reason why you don't say bring him back alive is that people think about him dying, but they don't mention that in the original one. So you're just up in the, like, you kind of have an idea why you're not supposed to say that, but they don't really spell it out, and they don't spell it out for him. You would think that if somebody's going to be in front of microphones all the time, they would tell him, don't say that kind of thing, and here's why. Instead, they're just like, fuck you, you're never going to be on the mics anyway, so we'll just have Jeff Daniels talk all the time now.
I do love how that scene ends with Jeff Daniels saying, no more Vincent on TV. And then, an hour later in the movie, Vincent's on TV.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff in there that I was going, whoa, wait a minute, was that in there? And inevitably, every time you think, was that in there? That probably wasn't in there. So yeah, it filled in some pretty good gaps on there. I don't think it's required or anything to watch it, but
right.
It was fun to watch the extended version.
You know what's good
cool.
about this movie is the script that we don't talk about enough. We obviously talked about the source material in the novel a lot, but it's Drew Goddard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Who wrote and directed Bad Times at El Royale and Cabin in the Woods.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't sound to me, maybe I'm missing it, because those two are very similar dialogue, right? Kind of like quippy, back and forth, big cast and all that stuff. It doesn't sound to me like Martian dialogue. So I don't know how much is directly lifted from the book. I've read the book, but it's been a while. And how much that did inform the dialogue itself and how it was delivered, because it doesn't sound like a Drew Goddard thing, but it's really, really good. There are times where Jeff Daniels sounds like he's doing a Aaron Sorkin dialogue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember when we did interview Andy Weir, he said he thought Drew Goddard did a really good job of boiling the book and the character, especially down to, what the intended purpose was. And I have to agree, the script is tight on this movie.
I think that's a case where somebody gets a job and they know that they can't just infuse it as their own thing. They know that this is a script that maybe they don't know who's directing it at the time, but they know that the source material is so good, they don't have to put their own little stamp on it. He's also an executive producer on this movie too. So I'm assuming that early on, he was a big, huge book supporter, and he didn't want to change too much out of that book. So I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, that he's able to write it and not be Drew Goddard, quote unquote, when he writes.
Yeah, that's interesting. But even when he's not, it's really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, this movie is just, I mean, Matt Damon's just so perfect in this. I can't even imagine somebody else in this role. Maybe it's because I think everybody has this bias after they've seen a movie. Who else would possibly be in that role or whatever. But I feel like Matt Damon's probably the best person they could have come up with on this.
Well, how did he come? When was Team America again?
2004.
2004. And at that point, he had done Good Will Hunting and everything, but he had kind of settled into, he did Talented Mr. Ripley.
He did Talented Mr. Ripley. He did Bourne. He had done Bourne by that time. He did Bourne Supremacy in 2004.
So they were just making fun of him for his advocacy, not for his
the puppet that they made didn't look like Matt Damon, and so everybody started talking in that voice for Matt Damon.
I see.
So it wasn't anything where they thought that, I think they were just making fun of his advocacy, and it wasn't anything.
They didn't think he was an airhead or anything like that, because he certainly has proved not to be over the years.
No, I don't think that's it at all. But yeah, I adore this movie. Every time I watch it, it's one of those. This is another movie you could just have on anywhere and just pick it up from that point and move on.
Yep.
And so yeah, I love it. What else? We're going up against the Raid 2 here.
You could pick this movie up really at any point and enjoy yourself, because unless you're after the kitchen fight, then everything, you're going to have at least one fight every 8 minutes or something like that, maybe more often, but those fights themselves last about, that prison fight seems like it lasts 10, 12, 15 minutes, because there's so many people involved. It's so kinetic. It's so breaking bonesy. And they keep adding people. They keep adding the officers and all that. It's just so great.
Yeah.
To quote The Martian, I think probably when they first showed the script of the Raid 2 to the actors, they were like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, are we really going to do this fight for this long?" And it would be easier, I think, if badass choreography and well executed choreography were the only thing that made the Raid 2 special, but that's not the case. There's a lot of incredible camera work, more than just that one shot between the two cars and going down the highway. All that stuff in the red mirrored hallway with Hammer Boy and Batgirl or vice versa. Like, why do you even shoot against mirrored surfaces unless you hate yourself? And he does that. You can't spot a camera or a light or a boom mic or anything in that whole sequence. So there's a lot of mastery at work here, way beyond just that. You can't just call this a martial arts film, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The plot is somewhat incidental, but it's still good. It's it's your basic undercover story, but it's a good one. Those are always oldies but goodies. The person who goes undercover and is either goes way too far down or is in a situation that's hard to get out of or whatever. You can always do, but they stage all this for the action that's in the movie.
What does he do at the end, by the way? Can he quit? Does he kill everybody involved that would be after him, or there's still the rogue government that's after him, right?
All the bad guys are done. I don't know what happens with his police outfit at all. He said fuck them at the end.
Well, right, because they're corrupt, and that's why dude originally sent him in, right?
Yeah,
you can't just send in the police because they're still corrupt.
The whole point of him being undercover is to find corrupt cops. At least that's what that guy keeps telling him. But so he's still screwed, just
right?
like Leo in Departed is like, why can't we just go ahead and arrest some of these guys? This guy killed so many people, why can't we? And it's like, you're not down there for them, you're down there for corrupt cops, which is an annoying. That's got to be completely annoying for an undercover cop to see 500 crimes a day, and then well, we're really looking for this one specific thing, and if you can find that, then you're good. We'll get you out. Between these two, what are we going to pick? I'm going to pick The Martian.
Well, I was also going to pick The Martian because you hit it on the head, Chris, when you said that with the Raid 2, the plot is kind of incidental.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that's definitely not the case with The Martian. And I like to consider myself one of, if not the biggest advocates for the Raid 2. I try and spread that love and that joy as often as I can. But I picked The Martian, even though you guys already took the decision out of my hands.
Yeah. It goes up against Inception now. Martian goes up against Inception, and that is Leo on Matt Damon Departed Violence again.
Oh, man.
So
that's going to be a fun one, actually.
That is going to be a fun one.
That's going to be a good one.
All right, everybody, it's time to talk about Movie once again.
Movie.
I saw a movie. I couldn't believe the era that this movie came out. It's 1954. It's called The Salt of the Earth. It was made by a director who was blacklisted back in the McCarthy era. And I think the movie description says it's the only movie that was actually banned from being in theaters back in the day. But it's still amazing to watch it, because in 1954, when you have a story about Mexican miners who are a part of a union who want to get the same rights that Anglo miners have, it's got a pro work and it's got a pro women angle to it. And it's got a couple of layers that you would normally, even movies today have a hard time doing. Now, a lot of this is a non-professional cast, so some of the acting is not up to speed. But the actual movie, the story of it is incredible. That there's something this progressive from 1954. And so you have these Mexican miners who they're working in New Mexico. They are Americans. They are being paid less, and they're getting less safety help. Like they're told to work alone. They can't have other people working with them. And this is all a ploy by this company to try to get them out and put, basically white miners in. So they have their own struggle. But when one of the main guys comes home and talks to his wife has a bunch of wants and needs that she doesn't feel he is willing to give her. And so the women in this story are huge heroes, and the women are trying to tell the men, you need to listen to us too in this fight for your equality and everything. And it's crazy just watching this movie. I'm sitting there going, is this really 1954? It seems unbelievable that this movie was made. And when I started watching it, I was like, I didn't even know the background of it. I was sitting there like, this movie had to have been banned or something. There's no way this movie came out and nobody talks about it today. And the reason why is because it was a blacklisted director, and it was like 12 years before it actually even got shown in the United States.
Oh, really? I was wondering about that. Like if it were lost to time, like altogether, or if it did actually finally get like a theatrical release. Because even in 1966, I guess that would be a more palatable environment for something like this. But it's certainly not like today.
So it's a very good movie. Like I said, it's you have a lot of non-professional actors in it, so a lot of it's like, okay, you have to give them sort of some leeway, but ultimately the story and the message is very good. And it's
as you were describing that movie, I had to bite my tongue 3 different times to keep from saying, could they be the miners? Of course, they're like 3 years old. Miners, not miners.
Yes. But yes, Salt of the Earth is a movie that you can find on Mubi right now. Well worth watching.
Mubi's got some crazy stuff on it right now. It's got banned movies that have found a new life. It's got another Troma studio movie on there, Tromeo and Juliet.
Oh
That's
yeah,
fun.
I saw that.
Ooh.
I saw that back in the day when Cinemax had one every Saturday night. I saw Romeo and Juliet. That
Wow.
movie is gross, and it's funny and gross. Well, it's got another one called Bloodsucking Freaks, which was I remember a guy who worked at our theater who was always talking about that movie, and he finally gave me a tape to watch. Yes, it was a VHS tape of it to
Nice.
watch back in the day. So I've seen Bloodsucking Freaks, another movie that's super gross. Gross.
I'll tell you a movie that's bonkers though, and Mubi did a very cool thing with this movie. They did a live tweeting event. So the movie's called Southland Tales. And you may not have heard of it, but you've heard of the director, Richard Kelly, probably from his movie Donnie Darko.
Right.
Cult classic. He also did a movie called The Box that was a little more widely released. But Southland Tales is just always been such an oddball. It came out in 2006. And what they did is they showed it. It's a beautiful presentation, by the way, on the service. They showed it, and Richard Kelly himself, I mean, just an absolute tweet storm about the context of the movie, how he wrote it, how he directed it, what he intended, what his limitations were, that kind of thing. And it was fascinating. Now, it doesn't make the movie any less bonkers. This has everybody, by the way. Okay, it's got The Rock. It's got Justin Timberlake. It's got Amy Poehler. It's got Sherry O'Terry. It's got John Lovitz. It's got Sarah Michelle Gellar as a porn star.
Yep.
And she's in a movie called Cock Chuggers 2, Cock Chugging.
Yeah. If only that was on Mubi, right?
But it's got so the Rock's character and Sarah Michelle Gellar, who's a porn star, are getting together, and that's what sets all the events in motion. Wallace Shawn is a big villain. Like, it's just the craziest thing, and it's got a very Under the Silver Lake, very Inherent Vice, almost a little Spring Breakers, by the way, in its kind of dreaminess, and a tiny bit of Starship Troopers because of the technology and the effects and stuff like that. It's set in the future. It's set in 2008, by the way. It was released in 2006, but by 2008, apparently we had all this crazy technology. But yeah, it's a scene, man. Like, and it's endlessly quotable. Chris had mentioned some of the quotes, one particular towards the end, and it's out of context the way Chris quotes it, but the quote itself is out of context. Like, even in the context of the movie, there's Sean William Scott is in this, by the way, playing two characters.
Yep. And
what happens is he goes to two different dimensions and he meets himself. And so The Rock is like, Bai Ling, who he's talking to, says, what would happen if they shook hands? And then The Rock offers his famous line, which is, the fourth dimension will collapse upon itself. You stupid bitch. Then he kisses the fuck out of her, and then he throws her to the ground.
This was the movie, even though I was lost the entire time watching this movie, the first time. I haven't seen it recently, but the first time I saw it and I was completely lost, I still thought this was the time that Dwayne Johnson actually became an actor. Like, for the most part, he had been sort of playing off of his own image, and he kind of does that today too as a joke. But like, I felt like before he was just kind of really trying hard to be an actor, and in Southland Tales, I feel like he got to that point.
Yeah, and it's probably the direction of I think we all love Donnie Darko.
Yeah,
and you see the performances he got out of that great cast too. He's got some weird mannerisms where you can tell he's right in that transition where he's like still trying tiny bit too hard. But, as it goes on over 2.5 hours, it, resolves into where he gets natural in his performance. So I recommend it because I dig stuff like this. I like weird, cerebral, crazy, fun rides. Oh, there's also that famous thing in the middle of that interlude with Justin Timberlake, who's a Iraq war vet, was injured in Fallujah, and now he's taking this synthetic drug. And when he takes this synthetic drug, he goes into this dream state. And when he wakes up, he's singing The Killers, all these things that I've done. And he's singing I got soul, but I'm not a soldier. And he's got this blood-stained shirt and everything. And he's swigging beer, and there's dancing nurses. And he's in a supermarket, and it's fucked up, but it's fun.
It's fun. All right. Well, where should people go to get their movie fix?
For all that and much more, this thing could go on, I swear to God, for like 30 more minutes. But go to Mubi.com/Cinemasins. This is the perfect time, people. I'm not trying to sound like somebody on QVC or anything like that, but this is the time to get an interesting, curated streaming service that will show you stuff that you won't see anywhere else. The stuff that Chris was talking about. Where are you going to find a movie like that? You're very rarely going to find Southland Tales somewhere else. So, and it just puts it in your eyeballs, 30 movies at a time. One goes away each day, one comes in. And so you'll have access to 60 movies over this free period. So sign up today, Mubi.com/Cinemasins, 30 days free. Do it and have fun. And yeah. Oh, nailed it.
Yeah.
Man, that's a stinger right there.
That's right. So, all right, we're going to move over into the other part of the South region. And the Sweet 16 matchup there is Parasite, the surprise 8-seed win over the Social Network, and the Cabin in the Woods, the 4-seed that beat Gravity last week.
Ooh, I'm ready to vote.
Two upset wins. There was some little sadness about Social Network last week getting knocked out, and for me, at least now, if you just ask me right now, I think it's because Parasite hasn't gotten inside of a lot of you yet. If you give it another 5 years, I think you might be leaning more Parasite. But
you have to practice that. You have to stretch things.
Yes.
to let it fully inside you.
That's right. It's like
sometimes you have to wear a plug for like
that's right.
Several days.
Some kind of a plug, right. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, Parasite versus the Cabin in the Woods. This looks like a mismatch on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you a question about Parasite? Because I'm fascinated because I have my interpretation generally of this, and I love it. But you guys have a deeper understanding of it, I think. Who is the leader of that family, the main family? Is it the daughter, or is it the mom, or are they egalitarian because out of necessity, because of their situation?
I mean, the dad is pretty much acting like a dad until the kid gets the job.
He does?
I think so.
Isn't the mom getting the job and like the pizza folding job and all that stuff? And
sure.
Everybody has a
right?
hand in getting something in this. Like, there's not anybody who's like at the beginning, you think that maybe the son/brother is the guy who's sort of the head of this household. And then there are times where the mom seems like the head of that household. And
then you have that scene at the door where the daughter is telling him, like, here's what you say, from Illinois, Chicago, that whole thing.
Right.
And it's like, she's the smarts of the outfit, and maybe she should be running things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I guess maybe it is a level playing field,
yeah, there's
right?
not anybody in there that's giving the orders or anything. Like,
unlike the rich family, right?
Yeah, think about it at first when the son goes and gets this tutoring job. He doesn't know that there's going to be like other jobs possibly available at some point. He goes in there,
right.
He learns about this, and then he's like, oh, I know somebody who could fill this. My sister could fill this. we'll go. I'll talk to her. So then she goes in, easily fills that job, and then it's through them that they start learning that there may be a shadier way to get other jobs that are in this. And nobody's like sitting there going, okay, you need to do this, or it's sort of like all of them decide that they've been poor for so long that, it's not a matter of debate as to whether they should do this. Let's try it out. Let's see what happens.
And is it her plan to come up with that they're not related? Like he wants to introduce her as his sister, or she wants to be a fictitious character because obviously she doesn't have that background.
No, they don't want to have any
whatever
sort of connection at all. Like they don't want that connection to be found, because if you say, hey, my sister is good at this, then it's, you may not even get a phone call because it's too biased or whatever. But if you say,
because it's all about. So go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say it's all about bouncing the recommendation. The kid gets the job because the family truly loved the kid before him. That kid was probably a hustler too, but they wouldn't trust his recommendation if it was for his own sister. It's only if he has a connection industry wise to somebody that would be good for that. So I think it has to be that way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This movie. Talk about all the layers of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's at least 7, like a Taco Bell burrito.
Yeah, for sure. How's that Ramadan, by the way, Jeremy? Is it good?
Yeah. Okay. So here's my wife and I have made this 6 times now.
Mm-hmm.
We just made it today because the noodles are cheap as hell, and the combination of the 2 different types gives it a really interesting, like, umami kind of flavor that I don't get in a lot of dishes. We put steak on it. We put pork chops on it. Today we put shrimp on it. All of them are great. Steak is the best, but it's so you don't even need to use a fancy steak like they do in the movie. But we love it. We're like kind of obsessed with it.
Man, she makes that stuff in this movie, and I guess she makes it in like 7 minutes or something. I don't know what it is, but
that's doable.
Is it?
It is through the microwave.
Oh my god!
Here's my
nice.
Yeah. It's that looks amazing.
Yep.
The stuff that she makes, though, God, I'm like, I definitely want to eat that because it looks amazing in it.
And the poor daughter, she's like, you made it for the son. He didn't want it, so you just eat it. I like Ramadan too. What the hell?
But yeah, it's hard. It's a lot of times it's hard to see who really is the victim in this movie. I think because we're following this family around, we're happy that they're getting what they finally want out of life, and they're not having to live down in this horrible place that they're living in anymore, and all that. They make the family that they work for like slightly. They're not evil. They're not bad people. They're just kind of, I don't know.
Casually classist and racist.
Yeah. And they're not just, I don't know. You watch this and you're like, man, these people are definitely committing some serious crimes here against this family. And you're glad that they're getting what they want, but at the same time, they're doing such awful things to get to it and everything. So it really does maintain a balance. I think.
I was thinking that it's so balanced that by that end scene, it's one person from every level that's been killed, right? The daughter, the father from downstairs, or the husband from downstairs, and the father from the top.
The wife from downstairs also died.
Right. Just in that scene, though, it's all those represented, and it makes it even more gut punchy that the lowest level, quote unquote, got the most casualties ultimately, right? It got 2 instead of the one apiece for the other ones.
This will make you happy. I just read on IndieWire from yesterday that Parasite is the most streamed movie on Hulu of all movies currently available.
Wow.
Nice.
So maybe more people are becoming exposed to it and letting it get inside them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe so. I certainly hope so. Just like what Bong Joon-ho was saying, I think it was before the Oscars. He said if so many worlds that are opened up to you cinematically if you can just, read that 2-inch or whatever amount of subtitles that are at the bottom of a screen, because a lot of people won't watch a movie if it has subtitles in it.
Yeah, in fact, looking for that article, I saw somebody tweet something nasty at Hulu about, it was a little bit racist about subtitles, and Hulu was, hey, if you don't like subtitles, you could just learn Korean.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Oh, that Hulu.
What a scam.
Anything else to say about Cabin in the Woods?
I think we're talking about one movie with a near perfect ending and one movie with a kind of out of nowhere, not very good relative to the rest of the movie.
I think last week you asked me if I hated the very ending of this movie, and I like the very ending where the monster finally comes out at the end.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I don't like the ending where it's Sigourney Weaver coming out and explaining everything. And then not only explaining everything, but like explaining things where they're like, well, we can fudge some of these rules too.
Yeah. And plus that looks like it's on an old Buffy set, like it's just like it's staged just so weirdly because the rest of the movie is so excellently done and paced. Mm-hmm. I just wish they would have found a way to maybe even cut to that final shot from a different place without having to go through all that stuff.
Like between these two movies, it's even hard to say that on initial blush, you might say Cabin in the Woods maybe has the creative edge on this, but really it doesn't. I mean, it perhaps has a premise that is a little bit more creative than Parasite, but like the things that happen in Parasite are still like, those are super creative things that happen in this. And
there's no wolf tongue licking though in Parasite.
That's true.
No, but there's also no clockwise nipple rubbing in Cabin in the Woods.
That's right.
Well, really? They don't get to that point.
Yeah,
that we know of. Yeah,
I like the part where the husband of the rich family is talking to his wife and saying, "Well, you're going to have to fire the limo driver." And I don't know if it's because of this is how they translated it, or if this is how it comes off in the actual Korean and everything. But it's like he's like, you're gonna have to fire this guy. You don't have to tell him about the panties or the car sex. Just the very matter of fact about you don't have to tell them about the panties or the car sex, but it says that in English on the subtitles, and I'm wondering if it just comes off that blunt and whatever in the Korean too. This is not a competition for me. It's Parasite.
Parasite.
Rock
the shit out of that one.
Yeah,
that's right.
Parasite moves on to the Elite Eight. It will go up against the winner of The Big Short versus Her. This is a tough one. I haven't seen, even though I've seen The Big Short probably the most of any of these movies. I haven't seen it in a while, actually, but it's probably been since I was on the plane with Barrett in coming back from Chicago.
That's still one of my favorite moments to look over with no context and see Ryan Gosling with the subtitles going, "I'm jacked to the tits."
Yes. I don't know what it is. What do we think about Ryan Gosling as an actor, by the way? I've heard many different interpretations for him.
I'm very high.
I now love him. I used to think he was a little phony, even for, a good-looking actor. I think ever since this run of the movies that we're talking about right now, Big Short, Nice Guys, La La Land, you see an authenticity in him that, I'm in love with him.
Yeah.
Even in First Man, man, I don't love First Man, but he's fantastic in that.
He is fantastic in that. Yeah,
yeah. There's definitely a vast improvement over the days of Murder by Numbers. If you watch that movie, I mean, he's fine in Murder by Numbers, but he's also like,
Sure.
I mean, he's not nearly the actor that he's going to become.
No, and even in
Either one of
something
those
like,
kids can go up against Sandra Bullock at that point, and anybody can
No.
in that movie. It's just laughable.
No.
I don't think like in Crazy Stupid Love, I know his character is supposed to have some douchebaggery to him, a lot of it, and a lot of artifice to him and stuff like that. But also, you can see it. I think you can see it in his performance, and I've seen it. Gangster Squad.
Yeah.
You can see it in that
Mhm.
too. Like you can see there's been some performances where he's just wooden, or he's just like trying to be too much of a tough guy. Yeah, he's definitely rounded out.
I don't
quite a
know.
bit.
Maybe it's because they started putting him in these kind of comedies and everything. Like,
Yeah, he's
Big
funny.
Short. There's a way about how he reacts to things. He just really gets it. In him in this and The Nice Guys are some of my favorite performances ever.
Mhm.
So now The Big Short going up against Her. This is such a man. What the hell? I guess in this matchup, Her is definitely going to win on creative points because Big Short is basically a biopic, but it's got some creative flourishes to it for sure. Especially when they got Margot Robbie, they've got Anthony Bourdain, they've got Selena Gomez, explaining us tough concepts and everything. It's just hard to know whether or not these people are heroes. You have Steve Carell, who is who's the one conscience in this movie, but like, I mean, all of them are profiting off of everybody's misery essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even the narration in that is a creative flourish that actually works because if you don't have that, Ryan Gosling, it's Ryan Gosling that does the narration, right? If you don't have that character narrating, ain't no way you're going to know which way you're going. So that's the one of the instances where narration is a positive thing. But with Her, like you can tell Spike Jonze just don't give a fuck, right? Like he makes whatever he wants to, whenever he wants to. Is this his first movie since? Well, okay, so he did Where the Wild Things Are, but before
this
that,
was right after that.
Yeah, he had taken forever.
It was like Three Kings, right?
No. Well, he's in Three Kings.
He's in Three Kings. Yeah.
But yeah, he did Being John Malkovich, and he did Adaptation, and then he took forever to do Where the Wild Things Are. It apparently was something that he was working on for like 10 years or something, and he finally came out with it. And then I do believe it is Her that came after that, and that took forever as well.
Yeah.
So he's one of those kind of directors, I think, where he wants to have a great, very well realized idea before he goes in to make it, and he wants to make that best movie he can make.
Didn't he do like Jackass stuff? I know he was a music video director, but like he was involved with the Jackass guys. He's
in I think the second Jackass, and he's one of the people dressed up as like an old man in there, helping them out.
Career, man.
Oh,
it's
no kidding.
Such a weird career.
Yeah. I honestly don't know which movie I would pick out of this group, guys. So, Jesus Christ.
Do you want one of us to go first?
No, I feel like I should go first on this one. Just let's pull the Band-Aid off. I'm going to say Her is better than The Nice Guy. I mean, better than Big Short. I love Big Short. Like I said, I have seen this movie probably more than any that's in the bracket, and maybe of any movie of this past decade. And I think it's just like The Nice Guys, where it's got, it's just funny and entertaining throughout. But I think Her is a better movie. It's got the creative points. It's funny. It thinks about its premise in a deep way, and it's a sign of our times too. So I have to go with Her.
Barrett, what do you think?
I'm going Her.
I'm going Her too. I think Gosling's having a rough day today.
He is.
He's taking a beating. We're telling everybody how great of an actor he is right now, but he's really taking a beating today.
It's not his fault.
It isn't. And these movies that we've sent off are all good. It's just that we're getting into the areas where these movies are tough that are going up against.
Well, what we're doing is the movies that we're ending up picking are pretty singular. Like, there's no movie like Her, and we can't. If somebody says Jexy in the comments, they can kiss my ass.
Right?
Like, there's no movie like Her that has the ambition, that has the heart. There's no movie like Parasite. So like even Inception. Mad Max Fury Road. Like, these are very, very singular movies.
Mm-hmm.
Parasite and Her will be going up against each other the next match.
Oh, fuck. Oh.
Right?
Ow.
We go to the West region. Our last two matchups of the day. We have the number 1 seed Ex Machina going up against the Wolf of Wall Street. Where do we start? Does anybody want to start off on one of these?
I love both of these movies. You know how much I love Wolf of Wall Street. But just after I said that, Wolf of Wall Street, you can see that movie being made even by Scorsese in like another 10 years, right? With another billionaire that's behaving badly. Mm-hmm. Because it is fun, at least for assholes like me, to watch the debauchery and eventual downfall, even though he ends up getting redeemed or back on his feet. Like, it's just too much fun to see how over the top you can make something. But I think we could probably see it before. I don't know if it's been done as well as it's done here, but I love it. I don't know how singular it is.
Right. It's funny that you made that discussion about singular movies, and here it is, Ex Machina going up against Wolf of Wall Street, which is got that same kind of flavor on this whole thing. Were you about to say something, Jeremy?
Just that the Wolf ate Paddington last week, and I'm still not over it.
Oh yeah,
and I hold a grudge. Mm-hmm. But I do tend to agree on this line of thinking that, God, we split hairs so much in this thing. But this is not the first Wall Street rich guys are terrible movie that we've ever seen. It has its own unique style, I think. But Oliver Stone's made 2 such movies already. And Ex Machina.
I'm gonna say he's only. I'm gonna say he's only made 1 because that sequel doesn't count.
Yeah. Okay. You wiping it off the face of existence.
That sequel never exists to me.
All right. But then you got Ex Machina, what is a very, very, very unique idea.
Yes, it is. That movie wraps you up from the very beginning of it. I don't think it ever lets go either. I don't think there's a slow moment in Ex Machina. Even when it's slow, it's really being interesting because the world that they're in, like we talked about this dude's house, which I guess they've built a set, but they've also used interiors of some hotel for some of that or whatever, but it's a place that I want to stay. It's a place I want to be at. Like if you were to be quarantined, you would want to be in that house, right?
Right.
That's the house that's got all the shit.
Yeah, unlimited booze, unlimited, like, not only just good food, like top of the line food, which is apparently delivered via helicopter every, I don't know, 4 weeks or something like that.
Yeah,
every fortnight.
Yeah, this is just a genius idea. And so Alex Garland wrote it and directed it. And I looked it up. If you ever get a chance, look at his IMDb. The poor guy looks like a mopey dude.
Oh, but he makes great shit.
He does make good shit. Did you, have either of you watched that Devs thing?
No, but it's higher on my list than Better Call Saul. That's not a dig. I'm just saying it's higher on my list.
It sounds like a dig.
It's a dig, but it's not a dig.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to pick Ex Machina here. I don't think you guys are probably going to pick anything else either, but I think Ex Machina is fantastic. And in this matchup, it's Ex Machina.
Does it make you so happy, Jeremy, to see to avenge your Paddington being eaten by the Wolf of Wall Street?
I'd rather go back and avenge Roma, but I did today basically by killing off La La Land. So yes, it does make me feel good, and Paddington will rise again.
Just so that you know, it would have been Paddington versus Ex Machina. What would you have picked? Because it was going to get fucked by a robot this week.
Oh dear!
There's a visual we need.
Indeed.
New uses for the marmalade.
I don't know, but this female looks and acts real to me, so it must be real.
It must be real. Let us have sex.
Yes. Why would that even occur to him while he's having sex with her? I think she's real. Did you all pick Ex Machina? Did I miss that?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
did.
Ex Machina, for sure. Yes.
Okay. All right. I was about to say like some surprise thing that Jeremy like, oh, Wolf of Wall Street all the way or something, and I'm like,
No, I would take shit for that, rightfully so.
We get to our final matchup here: the 2 seed Get Out and the 3 seed Interstellar.
See, this one looked like to me one of the worst or one of the hardest matchups.
It definitely is one of the toughest ones. I watched Get Out again a couple days ago. It had been a while, not too long, but I needed to give this one another go because Interstellar I'd seen a couple times in the past 6 months or so.
This is, I'm telling you, man, both of these movies are super rewatchable for content that shouldn't necessarily be super rewatchable. Like, it's not cool to see the stuff that they do or plan to do to Daniel Kaluuya's character in Get Out, but it's done in such a way that it's fascinating. The performances are electric and it's rewatchable. And especially if you know how it ends. Now, what do you guys think? Wasn't there an original ending to this where the cops show up, which is what I totally thought at the end when I first saw this, where the cops show up, see a black guy standing over a dead white girl, and we all know what happens in reality.
Glad you asked that because it's on the Blu-ray. The ending that he shot.
Is it really?
Yeah, that was supposed to happen. So yes, in the situation that we see in the movie, he's standing over her. We see flashing lights. We're like, oh no, but it ends up being Lil Rel Howery, and
which is one of the nicest. Finally, something good happens to this poor guy, right?
Yeah. In the other one, he's standing over her, and the cops the cops show up, and they point their guns, and they're like, get down on the ground and all that. And then it moves on to Lil Rel Howery going into the booth where you talk to people in the prison or whatever, and he talks to him, and Kaluuya is in an orange jumpsuit. And Lil Rel Howery's like, man, if you can just think of anything about that house, any details or whatever. And Kaluuya's like, man, just give up. It's been 6 months. The important thing for me is they can't do this anymore. They can't do this anymore. And he's like, just stop looking for ways to get me out of prison. And he gets up, he hangs the phone up, and he walks off. And the guards take him, further into the prison and everything. And it still plays that song that at the end of Get Out, that brother, and that and all that.
Yeah.
I watched it with and without commentary. And Jordan Peele said that this is the ending that I wanted, and that Daniel Kaluuya probably signed up for the movie for, is to have this very realistic ending and everything. But considering what had happened with the election and everything, remember this movie came out in February of 2017. He felt like they needed to have a hero at the end of this movie, and not pile on with some more just depressing, dour notes. Although that ending is very good. The fact that he's content to just spend the rest of his life in prison, he stopped those people from doing it again, is a great ending.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
I wonder if it would have gotten the amount of Academy love if they had gone with that original, almost horror movie ending, right? Now, if you think about it, this may have happened anyway. The house is burned down, right?
Yep.
So there's no evidence of the lab anymore.
Right.
The Allison Williams is still dead. The caretaker is still dead. And even though Lil Rel Howery gets him, who do they come after this, right?
Yeah, no idea, because I don't know if they can put two and two together there and say, oh, the boyfriend must have been there at the house and he did all this stuff.
That's true, because that's the whole point of the license, right? Is not to put him in that area.
Yes.
So he's essentially in the clear unless somebody puts two and two together. I'm just thinking like forward in the story. I am, for that reason, because of all the context, I'm kind of glad that he did the Wayne's World happy ending myself. But it is fascinating to think how the world would have accepted that movie if he went with that more realistic one.
Yeah.
Would you have liked it better, Jeremy?
I need to watch it to see if I would have liked it better. I tend to gravitate more toward ass-kicking endings than happy endings. Like, that's why I like the ending of The Mist. That's why, like, I don't, because so many movies have a happy ending, when you get something, or even a twist, like a Tin Cup, that's a not happy ending that still gets happy, I tend to lean towards that stuff more. I'm just glad they're not making a sequel.
No kidding.
It sounds like a very cool ending that I think would have played. I think the movie would have gotten about the same amount of acclaim. But I want to watch it now.
I do love like just little touches in there. I mean, this is nothing no other movie has done before, but like they the fact that at the beginning when she's like, well, I'm going to take you to see my parents and everything, and by the end of that conversation, he's like, well, I don't want to be in a situation where they're running me out in the front yard with a shotgun and everything. And that actually happens with her at the end of it. The thing that I wanted to talk about this movie that I don't think I've discussed before is how much we talk to each other in a way where we don't want to upset each other or cause any problems or anything. Throughout this movie, Allison Williams, Bradley Whitford and Catherine Keener and Caleb Landry Jones and all these people say some things that they don't know is quite racist. Maybe Caleb Landry Jones's character does, because he seems like he's all the way racist. But they say some things that are off kilter. And there's a point where Allison Williams is sitting there brushing her teeth, and she's like, my dad is like, when has he ever said stuff like this? It's like, this is the first time I've ever heard him say stuff like this and whatever. And he goes, I told you. And, and she goes, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. And he's like, it's okay. It's fine. He's already made peace with it, but still it's fucked up. And he wants to say something about it. He hasn't quite gotten to that point of it pouring out and everything. But every time somebody says something or does something fucked up in this, he lets it slide, and it's a really weird. I mean, it's a really interesting dynamic.
I love it, man. At the very beginning, in that first conversation that you're talking about, he asks, "Do they know I'm black?" And she's like, "Oh, they won't care," or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And he has that look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, I know what to expect.
Yes. There's a point too. You think about, okay, so he gets hypnotized against his will, obviously, in this movie. After it's done, and he realizes for sure that he got hypnotized, and he's done smoking and all that. He it's funny. He's letting it go. He likes Allison Williams. He's in love with her, whatever. He lets it go. He doesn't say anything about it. You know, it's something that should be something that he's upset about. But then when he tells his friend, and think about when you say something out loud finally, it sounds so fucked up.
Yeah, and that's when he takes it up to another level.
Yeah, you need somebody like that to play off against, because when he said, he's like, man, last night I think I got hypnotized. He's like, oh my God, man. He's like, next thing you know, you're gonna be one of the sex slaves, man, and all that. And he goes, and it's. I mean, it's amazing to me. That was the thing that I pulled out of this movie more on this viewing, was just how willing he is to keep the peace. How everybody really is, like in just everyday life things, willing to keep the peace because they don't want to get into that whole conversation. They don't want to make something end, or they don't want to make something, they don't want to have tension or whatever it is. And you'll accept any stupid thing as long as you have one good thing. And it was just a treat sort of watching that movie again, this Under That Light.
I think that's another layer of the racial message of the movie, right? Is that he's the one that has to constantly let things slide, not Bradley Whitford, right?
That's right.
It's the black guy that has to let all the white casual racist shit slide.
Absolutely.
And that's why I love this movie, is that we were joking earlier about layers, but it's got fucking layers. I mean, you can watch this from, if you just want to have a nice scare, if you want to have a deep kind of study into race and modern race relations. And this movie is deep. A lot deeper than most horror movies even try to be.
Mm-hmm. I will say, though, that by the end of it, I know that the whole idea is that black is in fashion, so that's why they are kidnapping black people and everything. But still, their technique and what these old people want a lot of times don't have much to do with being black at all. Like the Stephen Root character just wants his eye,
yeah.
like,
Yeah, so it's about privilege too, and at the expense of literally another race because they're in style right now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And I mean, this, it would work just as fine on anybody else if they wanted to kidnap, I don't know like if they wanted to kidnap Mark McGuire, back in the day, they could have done that, and it would have been the same sort of deal. The thing that the other thing about it is, once these white people are in their black bodies and everything, like it's one thing to look black, but to act black is impossible for them.
Oh yeah.
It's impossible. Like they sit there, like they think everything is normal the way that they're acting and everything, but it just doesn't come off right. It always comes off creepy every time they say something. When you put these old white people in these young black people, and they're sitting there like saying stuff like when he's like, when Kaluuya says, I wasn't going to snitch, and Georgina's like, snitch, and he's like, I wasn't going to rat you out, and she goes, tattletale, and he's like, yeah. Yeah, I guess that's what I mean. It's interesting in that dynamic too, talking about layers and everything. And I hope that by my very description of this, I'm not saying anything fucked up. I'm just saying this is what I saw when I watched this movie.
No, you're good.
It goes up against Interstellar, another Nolan film in our bracket. Another movie that is awesome. We're talking about space and shit, man. We're talking about some serious space today. Anybody have anything to say more about Interstellar?
I was curious, and I'm clearly not the first person to bring this up, but Interstellar was 2014 and The Martian was 2015, right? Mm-hmm. So that's like 2 years in a row that Matt Damon has been stranded on a planet by himself.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
It was a pretty stark thing to see the Martian and see Chastain and Damon. It was like, I mean, I feel like that people saw Interstellar and then they were like, well, let's put those same people in the Martian,
But make sure Damon gets his own planet.
Yeah, exactly.
I did realize this week when I was reading about the new Dune coming up, the Denis Villeneuve, that my French is getting better.
Yeah.
That apparently Timothée Chalamet's first movie role was Interstellar, and when he went to the theater to see the movie, he hadn't realized how small his role was going to be, and it made him cry.
Oh, really?
To realize how little of the movie he was ultimately in. Now, this is probably because a movie like Interstellar shoots 10 hours and then edits down to 2 hours and 45 minutes. And it's also probably because it was his first gig. He didn't really necessarily understand how exactly it worked. And he's not hurting today. He's one of the biggest young movie stars we have. But I just thought that humanized him a little bit more for me. Imagine your first big movie and it's Christopher Nolan and you go to space and you're like in a scene and a half.
I always wonder. I wonder about that sometimes with some of these actors who somehow, I don't know if it's because they don't have the full script in front of them or they didn't read the full script. They just read the parts that pertain to them or what. But there's that, I don't know if this is a legend or if this is true or what, but the Danny Lloyd, who played Danny Torrance in The Shining, didn't know he was in a horror movie.
Yep. Oh, I've heard that.
Like how in the world did he not know he was in a horror movie? Like they kept everything away from him.
They did, yeah. Kubrick and the filmmaker. You remember the Leon Vartowski?
Yeah.
His assistant, who ended up casting Danny Lloyd. He was like, the only, I don't know if his parents said the only condition is that you keep this away, or if it was Kubrick's idea, or if it was Leon. God damn it, Trotsky. What's the guy's? It's an Italian last name. Anyway. They worked together to where not one take, but like a few takes, because it's Kubrick, a few takes, and then get him the hell off a set, and then we'll cut to him in post.
Yeah.
And he didn't see it until obviously years and years and years later.
Yeah, it's Leon Vitali.
Vitali, yeah.
But even with the twins that are at the end of the hallway, he just thought that was just,
Yeah. He's just doing the peekaboo
thing. I don't think they're all bloody and stuff. They're bloody later, but all they are is just twins, and it doesn't seem like they're ghosts or anything like that to him when he was shooting it. But yeah, stuff like
when he pulls up, it's just them, right?
Yeah, it's just them
and just standing there. And then it's the alternating shots. Come play with us forever, and then he covers.
Yeah,
his eyes.
all that stuff could be done later, but
yeah.
But yeah, for
it's like the floppy penis in Roma.
It's like the floppy penis in Roma.
I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong.
You're so out of context. You're not wrong, Walter. You're just an asshole.
Am I wrong?
But that's the thing that I think about when you hear Timothée Chalamet didn't know he was in more of the movie. Did you notice the 100 and something other pages after you were done with it? I guess not. Interstellar constantly gets better. I always bring up the 30 minutes of in the middle where Chastain's trying to figure out the puzzle essentially, and McConaughey and Damon are fighting on that planet, and it just propels the way Nolan does those. It just propels you through that movie, and I love it so much. Okay, what are we going to pick out of this?
This is a toughie, man.
I will pick Interstellar. And I would like it on the record that my gut instinct was to pick against Interstellar because Interstellar crushed Zero Dark 30 last week, but I did not choose revenge. No. I truly am choosing my heart here.
Okay, I'm going to go Get Out on this one.
if we keep this theme going of super unique movies, you could choose either one of these and make a very, very good case of it, right?
Yeah, you could.
Unfortunately, like we said, The Wolf of Wall Street, maybe it doesn't apply to, but these two are absolutely unique. I'm going to go Get Out.
Get out right now.
Get out.
So what you're telling me is, if Interstellar is involved, I choose wrong all the time.
I think you picked Interstellar over Manchester by the Sea.
Well, there you go. All right, that's good to know.
And it's no longer in the bracket, so you
man.
can't be wrong anymore.
Well, it's
There you
not
go.
like space isn't well represented.
That's true.
In the remaining. Well, actually, there's only one other space movie.
Okay, so Ex Machina now goes up against Get Out in the Elite Eight.
Wow.
Holy fucking shit. All right, so
Wow.
let's look over this Elite Eight again, and we will be doing that, and I guess we might even do the Final Four, and well, no, we'll see. I think
We'll have to see.
I think we'll do the Elite Eight, and then we'll do the Final Four and Championship on the next episode after that.
Yeah, I like that because this took up a lot of time, and we've got some questions from you people that we want to answer and all that stuff.
So the Elite Eight is Mad Max Fury Road versus Hell or High Water, Inception versus The Martian, Parasite versus Her, and Ex Machina versus Get Out.
Let's fight.
Yeah,
What do we do?
yeah, no kidding. Some tough
Wow,
stuff.
all still contenders here. Really, any of them could go all the way.
Yep, I agree. Go to SinCast presented by Cinemasins on Facebook. We're also on Cinemasins Twitter, Music Video Sins Twitter. We have a Discord. If you want to get on Discord, you can go to the Reddit page on the right side and find a link there, or you can private message me on Facebook and I can give you a link through that. We're also on SoundCloud.
And sorry, I haven't been responding to SoundCloud recently, but I will get right back on it. We love hearing your stuff on all the platforms, so keep it coming.
But that'll do it for this week. It's Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Scher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
I turned on while I was waiting for you guys. I turned on it's the new offering from Joe Swanberg, the Mumblecore guy, called Art History, and I was like, I love Swanberg. I pretty much love everything that he's done. Let me just watch the first couple minutes of it. First couple minutes of it literally is an incredibly graphic sex scene, like of a naked chick putting a condom on this dude, and them going through the machinations of the beginnings of sex while the guy, the director character is filming it, presumably for like an art project or something like that.
Nice.
Are they?
I might have to watch the first few minutes of that movie.
Are they including all the names of all the people at the Justice Department that are covering up for the, covering up for Detroit and the car industry and all that? I saw something. I think it was an Anna Kendrick Christmas movie that he did. And
He did that? I remember, Jeremy, weren't you talking about that? That Anna Kendrick Christmas movie? Chris, you said it, and you hadn't heard of it?
I'd heard of it, but I don't think it started life as a Netflix movie. I don't really remember.
It's got Melanie
I haven't
Linsky
seen
in it.
Is it good?
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I think I remember it being average.
Such a weird thing. I mean, every indie director has one of those, I guess, but it seems like Swanberg has carved out such a lane for himself that he's not really looked to deviate over the years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've also seen something that one of his like actors or disciples or producers or somebody, a movie he did, which was a sequel to the movie that Joe Swanberg did. And the whole movie's about doing a sequel to that movie.
That was on Mubi, wasn't it?
It was.
I think I remember seeing that.
Actually,
yeah.
yeah.
Because that tree includes like the Duplass brothers and like a ton of people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Did either of you watch the recent episode of Breaking Call Saul, Better Call Saul?
Yeah, I saw it last night.
I haven't seen any of this season.
Dude, you are missing what I think is the best season of this series.
Yeah, it's weird. I agree.
I'll get to it. I'll get to it.
I agree. I've been very strongly engaged with this season.
It's because it's less about story building and gotchas and here's Gus Fring and here's Mike Ehrmantraut and here's the German dudes that build the lab and are trying to get back to their big burly women in Bavaria or wherever. And it's more about like the actual characterization of the main guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awesome. And this last episode, the last 20 minutes, was some of the best, most compelling television I think I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I got too much to catch up on. Maybe, I mean, I'll watch it eventually. I don't hate that show. I just, I don't love it the way everybody else has. And couldn't get it up. I couldn't get it up for this season.
No, after last season, I was not excited for this season, but this one is like
That's what everybody's
blowing it
saying
out of the
about
water.
Everybody's saying that about Westworld too, like because season 2 was like almost aggressively annoying, and I guess season 3 is like fantastic, and I'm like, okay, I'll come around eventually, but I'm still bitter.
You hold a grudge against a show, man.
I mean, if I invest enough time and it goes completely, like the first season of Westworld was confusing but interesting, and the second season seems specifically designed to make you have, like, the end of that season, you have no fucking idea what's going on, and I'm not entertained by that.
I bet you're getting really good at archery, Jeremy.
Well, the last few days it's been a little bit nipply to be going outside to shoot arrows.
Oh yeah,
I'm improving.
Yeah, what the fuck was that? It was like 70s and 80s, and we're in April now, and suddenly, all right, it's 30s and 40s again.
Yeah, they fucking hate us.
Fuck. No kidding, they hate us. They hate us.
They, the ones that control the weather, they hate us.
Sean Connery and his group of colored bears.
That's right.
Yes, they.
That's right.
What do they call the bong in Pineapple Express? It's like the one he got in, like, Israel.
What, the Seth
Is it
Rogen's or
Bong?
Danny McBride?
Is it Bong Mitzvah?
Oh, it could be. Or Bongzilla.
Oh, man. There's some bong that one had given the other as a gift, and it gets destroyed in that fight at Danny McBride's house.
Let's see. It is.
I think it's shit. I think it's Bong Mitzvah.
You're probably right. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, anytime
Nice.
somebody is like, I think it's something really specific, I'm like, okay, it probably is that.
Especially
Yeah,
when it's
especially
Jeremy.
when it's Jeremy.
Yes.